Broken heart, I trusted my grandpa with all my heart, but on my wedding day, he destroyed that trust forever. I will never forget the moment I walked into that bridal room, smiling, glowing, ready to begin the happiest day of my life, only for my world to fall apart in one single heartbeat. My grandpa, the man I had loved, respected, and leaned on all my life, was standing there. But he wasn't there to bless me. He wasn't there to tell me how beautiful I looked in my white dress. No. He was there to do something that still burns inside my chest when I think about it. He was there to ruin me. What he did that day broke me in ways I can't fully explain. I lost my faith in family. I lost my faith in love. And that was the very moment I realized sometimes the person you trust the most is the very one who will cut you the deepest. But before I continue, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Mary. I'm speaking to you all the way from Georgia, USA, and I am 74 years old. If you are watching this right now, please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapters of this heartbreaking story. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching from? I really want to know. Now let's go back to how it all started. Because stories like this don't just happen in one day, they build up like a storm. And the storm that destroyed my wedding day started years before. When I was a little girl, my grandpa was my hero. My father died when I was very young, so grandpa became the closest father figure I ever had. He was strong, respected in the town, always walking with his cane and tipping his hat at neighbors. To everyone outside, he looked like the perfect gentleman. And to me as a child, he was everything. He bought me my first bicycle. He taught me how to fish in the creek behind his house. And every Sunday after church, he would sit me on his lap and tell me, "Mary, one day you're going to be a fine young woman. And when that day comes, I'll be right there to see it." I believed him. I trusted him. But little did I know, behind that smile of his, behind the kind words, something darker was hiding. As I grew older, Grandpa became more controlling. At first, it seemed like care. He didn't want me staying out late, didn't want me wearing dresses above my knees, didn't want me talking to boys. He said it was to protect me. And because I loved him so much, I obeyed. I thought he was just watching out for me. But then came high school. That's when I first noticed how much he disliked me having friends, especially male friends. Anytime a boy came to visit, Grandpa would glare at them, scare them away with harsh words, or find a reason to forbid me from seeing them. He always told me, "Mary, you don't know men the way I do. They'll only break your heart. Trust me, Grandpa knows best." For a while, I believed him. But inside, I was lonely. I wanted to experience love, laughter, and freedom like other girls my age. Then came John. John was different. He was kind, funny, and he had a smile that could light up the darkest room. He worked at the local grocery store, and one afternoon, when I went in to buy bread, he slipped a note into my hand. It said, "You have the prettiest smile I've ever seen." I remember blushing so hard, I almost dropped the loaf of bread. That was the beginning of something beautiful. We started meeting in secret. At first, it was just talking, laughing, holding hands. Then, slowly, it grew into love. Real love. He was my first kiss, my first dance under the stars, my first taste of happiness outside my family's control. But there was one big problem. Grandpa hated him. The first time John came to our house to meet my family, Grandpa didn't even shake his hand. He stared him down and said, "This boy is not good enough for you, Mary. He will never be good enough." I was embarrassed. John was hurt, but I was also angry. For the first time in my life, I began to question Grandpa's authority. And that's when the cracks in our relationship started to show. The years went by, and my love for John only grew stronger. He was patient with me, even when Grandpa made it nearly impossible for us to see each other. We would sneak out, meet at the old barn, and talk for hours. And every time I looked into John's eyes, I knew he was the one. So when he finally proposed, I didn't hesitate. I said yes. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My wedding day. I had waited for this moment, dreamed about it, and prayed for it. I wanted to walk down that aisle, see John standing there, and know that I was finally free to live my own life with the man I loved. But that's not what happened. Because just a few hours before the ceremony, something happened that would change everything. Something that would make me look at my grandpa in a way I never had before. Something that would make me hate him. It started when I was getting ready in the bridal room. My bridesmaids had just stepped out to fetch some last-minute things, and I was left alone. That's when the door opened and Grandpa walked in. At first, I smiled, thinking he came to give me a blessing. But the look on his face was not love. It was something else. Something darker. He closed the door behind him. Slowly. Then he turned to me and said words that made my blood run cold. And that, my dear viewers, is where I will pause for now. I stared at him, waiting for him to smile, maybe tell me I looked like the most beautiful bride in the world. But instead, he leaned closer, his eyes cold, and whispered, "Mary, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. You can't marry John. Not today. Not ever." My heart skipped. My hands began to shake. "Grandpa," I whispered, "why would you say that? You know I love him." He took a step forward, his voice sharper. "Love? You think you know love? That boy will ruin you, Mary. He will take you away from me, and I cannot let that happen." I froze. The way he said it, it wasn't protective. It wasn't about my safety. It was about control. It was about him. "Grandpa," I said, my voice trembling, "please don't do this to me. Don't ruin my wedding day. I've waited for this moment my whole life." He slammed his cane against the floor, the sound echoing in the small room. "You're not walking down that aisle. Not while I'm still alive." My breath caught in my throat. His words cut through me like a knife. And then he did something I will never forget. Something that made me realize he wasn't the man I thought he was. He walked over to my dressing table, picked up the lace veil I was supposed to wear and ripped it in half. Just like that. Tore it apart with his hands, his face twisted with rage. Tears filled my eyes. That veil had been my mother's. The only piece of her I had left. She had worn it on her wedding day, and I had dreamed of wearing it too. Watching Grandpa destroy it felt like watching him destroy her memory, destroy me. I screamed, "Why are you doing this? Why are you hurting me like this?" But he didn't stop. He turned, his voice low and bitter. "Because if I can't keep you, no one will." That was the moment I realized the truth. Grandpa's love for me was never pure. It was selfish, obsessive, and dangerous. Just then, the door burst open. My best friend Clara ran in, holding the bouquet she had gone to fetch. She stopped dead in her tracks when she saw the ripped veil in Grandpa's hands and my tears streaming down my face. "Mary, what happened?" Clara gasped. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Grandpa grabbed my wrist hard, so hard it left a mark, and pulled me close. "Say nothing," he hissed in my ear. "If you tell anyone what happened here, you'll regret it." My whole body shook. I felt trapped between fear and desperation. Clara rushed to me, trying to pull me away from his grip. "Let her go, sir," she shouted. "This is her wedding day. What's wrong with you?" Grandpa glared at her with such hatred that even Clara stepped back, frightened. And then something unbelievable happened. Grandpa raised his hand as if to strike me, on my wedding day, in my white gown. But before he could, the door opened again. And this time it was John. He froze when he saw the scene, me in tears, the torn veil, Grandpa's hand raised. His face went pale. "Mary," he whispered, "what's going on here?" I couldn't speak. My lips trembled. I was too shocked, too broken. And Grandpa, oh, Grandpa didn't even try to hide it. He turned to John with a cruel smile and said, "You'll never have her. Do you hear me, boy? Never." That was the exact moment everything changed. The man I trusted all my life, the man who raised me, the man I called my hero, had just shown his true face. And now John had seen it too. What happened next shook the walls of that church and left scars I carry to this very day. John's face hardened the moment Grandpa's words left his mouth. His jaw clenched, his fists tightened, and his eyes locked on mine. For a second, silence filled the room, so heavy that I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Mary," he finally said, his voice low but steady. "Is this true? Has he been doing this to you?" I shook my head quickly, tears spilling down my cheeks. Not because it wasn't true, but because I didn't know what to say. I was torn between fear of Grandpa's threats and the desperate need to cry out for help. Grandpa squeezed my wrist tighter, as if daring me to speak. His grip was iron, his fingers digging into my skin. John took one step closer, his voice rising. "Let her go. Now." Grandpa laughed. Actually laughed. A cold, mocking laugh that made my stomach twist. "And what if I don't? You think you're man enough to take her from me? Boy, you don't even know the first thing about her." Clara, still standing by the door, looked from John to Grandpa, fear etched across her face. "Somebody stop this," she whispered, but no one came. The church halls outside were full of guests, music, and chatter. No one knew that inside this little room, my whole world was collapsing. Finally, John couldn't take it anymore. He rushed forward and yanked me out of Grandpa's grip. My arm throbbed with pain, but in that moment, I felt a flicker of safety in John's hands. Grandpa's face darkened, his eyes blazing with fury. "You dare touch her? You dare defy me?" John stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. "Mary is not your possession," he spat. "She's a woman, and she's the love of my life. If you ever lay a hand on her again, I swear." But before John could finish, Grandpa did the unthinkable. He swung his cane with all his strength and struck John across the chest. The sound echoed through the room. John staggered backward, gasping in pain, his hand clutching his ribs. I screamed, "Grandpa, stop. Please." But he didn't stop. He raised the cane again, his face twisted with rage, ready to strike him once more. In that split second, I had to make a choice, stand frozen in fear, or step in. Without thinking, I lunged forward and grabbed the cane mid-swing. "Enough," I cried, my voice breaking. "You're destroying everything. Do you even see what you're doing?" For the first time, Grandpa hesitated. His hands trembled as he held the cane, his eyes boring into mine. For just a moment, he looked human, vulnerable, like the grandfather I used to know. But then, in a blink, that softness vanished. His lips curled into a sneer. "If you marry him, Mary, I swear I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." John, still in pain, grabbed my hand and pulled me behind him again. "You don't scare us," he said through gritted teeth. "We're getting married, with or without your blessing." Those words lit a fire in Grandpa's eyes. He didn't shout, didn't raise the cane again. Instead, he leaned close, so close that I could feel his breath against my ear, and whispered words that sent chills down my spine. "If you walk down that aisle, Mary, I will reveal your darkest secret. The one nobody knows. The one that will make John walk away from you forever." My heart stopped. What secret? What was he talking about? I searched his eyes, desperate for answers, but all I saw was cruelty. John looked at me, confused. "Mary? What is he talking about?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out, because in that moment, I wasn't even sure myself. Grandpa smirked, satisfied by my silence. And that's when I realized he was holding something over me. Something I didn't even understand yet. And just as the tension hit its breaking point, the door swung wide open again. This time, it wasn't Clara. It wasn't John. It was my mother. She stood there, her face pale, her eyes wide, staring at the scene before her. John clutching his side, me trembling in my torn veil, and Grandpa with the cane raised. Her lips parted, and in a voice filled with both fear and rage, she said, "Father, what have you done?" And right there, the truth I had been shielded from my whole life was about to come crashing down. The air froze when my mother walked in. Her eyes darted from John's bruised chest to my tear-stained face, then to the cane still clutched in Grandpa's shaking hands. "Father," she said again, her voice trembling, What have you done? Grandpa's face twitched, but he quickly forced a smile. Nothing, child. Nothing at all. Just a misunderstanding. Isn't that right, Mary? I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. My body was still trembling, my heart pounding so loudly that I couldn't think straight. John, however, stepped forward, anger burning in his eyes. A misunderstanding? He attacked me. He ripped her veil, threatened her, and tried to stop this wedding. If I hadn't walked in— Enough! Grandpa thundered, slamming his cane against the floor again. His voice echoed through the little room, so loud that it made me flinch. But Mother didn't back down. Her eyes glistened with tears, but there was fire in them too. I warned you, Father, she whispered. I warned you not to destroy her life the way you destroyed mine. The room went silent. My breath caught in my throat. Destroyed her life? What did she mean by that? Grandpa's jaw tightened. Don't you dare bring the past into this. That was different. No. Mother cried, her voice breaking. It was never different. You controlled me the same way you're trying to control her. You ruined my happiness, and I swore I would never let you do the same to my daughter. But look at her. Look at what you're doing to her. I stared at my mother, shock and confusion swirling inside me. She had never spoken like this before. Never once had she challenged Grandpa in front of me. All my life, I had seen her obey him, respect him, tiptoe around his temper. But now she was standing tall, trembling but brave. What are you talking about? I whispered, my voice barely audible. What did he do to you, Mom? She turned to me slowly, her eyes filling with tears. Mary, I should have told you long ago, but I was too afraid. Grandpa's face grew red with rage. Don't you dare, he barked. If you say one more word, I will. You will what? Mother snapped, her voice suddenly fierce. Hurt me? Hurt her? Haven't you done enough already? John put a protective arm around me, glaring at Grandpa. Clara hovered near the door, her hand over her mouth, too stunned to move. My chest tightened. My hands grew cold. Every second stretched into forever as I waited for my mother to continue. She looked me straight in the eye, her voice shaking. Mary, the secret he's holding over you, it isn't yours. It's mine. And I've carried it in silence for years. My heart dropped. Your mother is weak, Grandpa spat, trying to cut her off. She doesn't know what she's saying. But Mother didn't stop. She gripped my shoulders, tears running down her face. The truth is, the man who raised me, your grandfather, is not the man you think he is. Suddenly, Grandpa slammed his cane down so hard the mirror on the vanity cracked. The sound made everyone jump. His face twisted with rage. Silence, he roared. If you dare speak that lie, I swear this wedding will end in blood. The room shook with his words. I felt my knees weaken. My whole body went numb. And in that terrifying moment, I realized the truth was bigger than I imagined. Because my mother was about to reveal something that could destroy not just my wedding day, but my entire life. My legs felt like they were about to give out beneath me. My own wedding dress suddenly felt heavy, like chains weighing me down. My mother's grip on my shoulders was tight, trembling, desperate. Mary, she whispered, her eyes locked on mine. You deserve to know the truth. Grandpa's cane slammed against the cracked mirror again, shards falling to the floor. His voice thundered through the room. If you tell her, it will destroy everything. Do you want to ruin her life the way you ruined your own? But my mother didn't move. For the first time in my life, she stood her ground against him. Her tears streamed freely, but her voice grew stronger. I stayed silent for too long, she said. I let your shadow cover this family, and it almost broke me. But I won't let it break her too. I clutched John's arm, my body shaking. Mom, please. Tell me. What secret? What are you talking about? Her lips trembled. She glanced at Grandpa, who was glaring at her like a predator ready to strike. Then she turned back to me. Mary, the truth is, your grandfather isn't the man you think he is. The reason I married your father in secret, the reason we moved away for years, the reason I came back broken. Her words trailed off, choked by sobs.
Say it.
I begged, my voice cracking. Please, Mom. I need to know. Grandpa's face was crimson now, veins bulging on his forehead. If you speak another word, girl, I swear. But John cut him off, stepping between us.
No.
You don't get to silence her anymore. We all deserve to hear the truth. Especially Mary. Grandpa's grip on his cane tightened. His breathing grew heavy, ragged. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not anger, not control, but fear. And that scared me more than anything. My mother inhaled shakily, then finally spoke. The truth is, the secret he's holding over you is that John isn't the first man you were ever promised to. The room fell silent. I blinked at her, my chest tightening. What do you mean? She swallowed hard. When you were born, Mary, he made an agreement. He promised you to someone else. A man much older than you, one of his friends. That's why he's fighting so hard now. Because if you marry John, that secret will come out, and the deal he made will be exposed. The walls seemed to close in on me. My stomach turned. My whole body felt sick. What? I whispered, clutching my chest. He promised me? Like I was property. My mother nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. I wanted to tell you, but he threatened me. He said if I ever spoke, he'd destroy us both. I was too afraid. But today, seeing you in that dress, seeing him do this to you, I can't stay quiet anymore. Grandpa's cane slipped slightly in his hand, his knuckles white. Lies, he shouted, his voice cracking. All lies. She's trying to poison you against me. Mary, don't listen to her. But deep inside, I knew. I knew it was true. I remembered all those times he had warned me about boys, kept me under his control, insisted no one would ever be good enough for me. It all made sense now. He wasn't protecting me. He was keeping me in place for a deal I never asked for. My hands shook violently. My breath came in short gasps. John's grip on me tightened, grounding me, but my heart was racing. Is this true? I whispered, turning to Grandpa, tears streaming down my face. Did you sell me off before I was even old enough to understand what love was? Grandpa's lips parted. For the first time, he had no quick words, no sharp reply. He just stared at me, his chest rising and falling. The silence was unbearable. And then he did something I never expected. He dropped his cane. It clattered to the floor. He lowered his head and whispered, barely audible, yes. The sound shattered me. My knees buckled, and I nearly collapsed if John hadn't caught me. My vision blurred with tears. My heart cracked open in a way I didn't think was possible. The man I had trusted, the man I had loved, my own grandfather, had betrayed me long before this wedding day. But before I could even process it, before the weight of his confession could fully sink in, the door burst open once again. And standing there was the very man I was promised to. He stepped into the room, his face shadowed, his eyes cold, a cruel smile tugging at his lips. And he said, well, it looks like I've arrived just in time. The room went still. My blood turned to ice. And I knew this nightmare was far from over. The moment that man stepped into the room, the air grew heavier. His presence was chilling, his suit crisp, his shoes polished, and yet his eyes were the kind you never forget.
Cold. Calculating.
The kind that make your stomach twist before he even says a word. I clutched John's arm tighter, my whole body trembling. Who are you? I whispered, though part of me already knew the answer. He smiled, a slow, smug smile that made my skin crawl. Mary, he said smoothly, like he had rehearsed it 1,000 times, I've been waiting a long time to meet you properly. My name is Richard Carter. But in truth, you've belonged to me since the day you were born. The room fell into stunned silence. My breath caught in my throat. My heart thudded violently in my chest. No, I whispered, shaking my head. No, that's not true. That can't be true. But Richard only chuckled. Oh, it's very true. Your grandfather and I came to an agreement many years ago. You see, Mary, girls like you, beautiful, innocent, obedient, don't come around often. So I made sure you would one day be mine. Your mother knows it. Your grandfather knows it. And deep down, now you know it too. Tears blurred my vision. My stomach churned so violently, I thought I might faint. John stepped forward, his voice fierce. She's not yours. She's my fiancée, my future wife, and you have no right to even stand here. Richard turned to him with a cold smile. Ah, the boy. The little obstacle. I admire your courage, but you don't stand a chance against me. You have nothing. I have power, money, influence, and most importantly, I have her grandfather's word. He glanced at Grandpa, who stood silently, his face pale and ashamed. He didn't even try to deny it. That silence was confirmation enough. John's fists tightened. His body shook with rage. I don't care about your money or his so-called word. Mary belongs to herself, and I will fight for her, no matter what it takes. Richard laughed again, low and mocking. Fight? Against me? Do you know who I am? I can crush you like an ant, boy. One word from me, and your life, your family, your little dreams, all gone. I couldn't breathe. I felt trapped, like the walls were closing in, like my whole life had been stolen before I even had a choice. Stop it. I screamed, my voice cracking. I am not property. You can't decide my life for me. Not you, not Grandpa, not anyone. Richard's smile faded. His eyes hardened. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mary. Because you see, he stepped closer, lowering his voice, so only I could hear. If you dare walk down that aisle with him today, I'll make sure the world knows every secret your family has buried. Your father's mistakes, your mother's shame, your grandfather's sins. Everything. And then, you'll have nothing left but me. My knees buckled. My breath came in sharp gasps. My chest felt like it was being crushed. John reached for me, steadying me, whispering, Don't listen to him. Don't you dare listen to him. But how could I not? His words carried the weight of threats that could destroy my family's name, our dignity, everything we had left. Clara, who had been frozen by the door all this time, finally spoke. You're sick, she spat, her voice trembling. You can't do this to her. This isn't love. This is madness. Richard turned his head slowly toward her, his expression cold as stone. And you should keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you. Clara flinched but stood her ground, her hands shaking. The tension in the room was unbearable. My mother sobbed quietly, her face in her hands. Grandpa stood frozen, like a man caught in his own trap. And then Richard's voice cut through the silence again, low and final. Mary, you have a choice. Walk down that aisle with me, honor the agreement that was made, or try to marry him. He flicked his eyes toward John, and watch everything you love crumble to dust. My breath caught. My world spun. And in that terrifying moment, I realized my wedding day wasn't just about love anymore. It was about survival. But before... My body trembled as Richard's words echoed in the room. A choice. He called it a choice, but it wasn't. It was a trap. A cruel, suffocating trap that made me feel like a bird locked in a cage, wings clipped, unable to fly. My mother sobbed quietly, whispering, I'm so sorry, Mary. I never wanted this for you. Grandpa refused to meet my eyes. He stared at the floor, his cane abandoned at his feet, his shoulders hunched like a man who had finally been crushed by his own sins. And John, sweet, brave John, gripped my hand tighter than ever, his voice steady despite the fury in his eyes.
Mary.
Don't let him win. Don't give in. You are not his. You are not a bargain or a deal or a contract. You are mine if you want to be, and I am yours. Richard's laugh sliced through the air. How poetic. But you forget, boy, love doesn't pay debts. And her grandfather's debt to me is deep. Very deep. I spun to Grandpa, my voice breaking. Debt? You did this for money? Grandpa finally looked up, and in his eyes I saw shame. Mary, he whispered. I was desperate back then. Times were hard. Richard offered me what no one else would. I thought, I thought I could control it, keep you safe until the time came. But safe. I cried, my voice shattering. You call this safe? You promised me away like cattle. You destroyed my wedding day, my happiness, everything because of money. My whole body shook with rage and heartbreak. Tears streamed down my face, blurring everything around me. John turned to Grandpa, fury blazing. You disgust me. You were supposed to protect her, not sell her. You don't deserve to call yourself her grandfather. Grandpa's lips quivered, but he had no words left. Richard, however, smiled wider, like a predator watching its prey crumble. Touching, isn't it? But words won't change reality. Mary, it's time to decide. Do you honor the agreement your family made, or do you ruin everything they've tried to hide? The room spun. My chest heaved. My hands were ice cold in John's warm grip. Mary, John whispered, his forehead pressed gently to mine. Look at me. Just me. Forget him. Forget the past. Forget the threats. Choose us. Choose love. Please.
I wanted to.
Oh, God, I wanted to. But Richard's threats rang in my ears. My family's shame exposed. My future destroyed. John crushed under the weight of Richard's power. I can't, I whispered, choking on sobs. I don't know what to do. Richard stepped closer, his hand reaching for mine. Yes, you do. Deep down, you know where you belong. With me. It's inevitable, Mary. It's fate. But before his hand could touch mine, John shoved him back. Don't you dare lay a finger on her. The room erupted. Richard stumbled, then lunged at John with a roar of rage. Chairs toppled, the vanity shook, the cracked mirror splintered further. Clara screamed, trying to pull me away, while my mother shouted at the top of her lungs. Stop it. Stop this madness. But the fight had already begun. John and Richard crashed against the wall, fists flying, anger spilling like fire. Richard was older, but he was strong, fueled by years of arrogance and cruelty. John, though younger, fought with pure love and desperation. Each punch, each shove, each grunt echoed like thunder in the small room. I screamed, tears blinding me. Stop. Please stop. Grandpa finally stumbled forward, his face pale. Enough. Both of you. But before he could finish, Richard shoved John so hard that he crashed into the vanity, shattering the mirror completely. The glass exploded across the floor, glittering like sharp stars. I gasped, rushing toward John, my heart in my throat. Blood trickled from his arm where the glass cut him. Richard towered over him, panting, his tie loose, his face twisted with rage. This ends now, he snarled. And then he reached inside his jacket. When his hand came back out, he was holding a gun. The room froze. My breath caught in my chest. My heart stopped beating for a second. Richard, my mother screamed, horror in her voice. Clara gasped, backing against the wall. John, blood dripping down his arm, looked up defiantly. Go ahead, he said through clenched teeth. But if you think pointing that thing at me will make her love you, you're more delusional than I thought. Richard's hand shook slightly on the weapon, but his smile was cold and steady. Oh, John, you think this is about love?
No.
This is about power. And in the end, power always wins. He raised the gun, and I screamed. But just before he could pull the trigger, another voice cut through the chaos. A deep, commanding voice from the doorway. Put the gun down, Richard. Right now. We all turned, and standing there was the last person I expected. It was the local sheriff. And beside him was my father. The father I thought had been long dead. The room went still. My world tilted. And I realized everything I thought I knew about my family was about to shatter again. The room went still. The sight of him made my knees weaken. My throat tightened, my breath stuck in my chest. Standing beside the sheriff was a man with tired eyes, streaks of gray in his hair, and a face I hadn't seen since I was a child. Dad. The words slipped out of my mouth like a broken whisper. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. For years, I had been told he was dead, that he had abandoned us, leaving my mother to raise me alone under Grandpa's roof. I had grieved him, cried for him, even hated him at times. But now here he was.
Alive.
Tears welled in my eyes. My mother gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. You're alive?" Grandpa staggered backward, his face turning ashen. This can't be happening." Richard sneered, his gun still pointed at John. "So, the ghost decides to show up. How convenient." The sheriff, his hand resting calmly on his holster, took a step forward. "Put the gun down, Richard. Don't make me repeat myself." But Richard only laughed, the sound dark and bitter. "Oh, this is rich." The runaway father returns, the sheriff plays hero, and the groom bleeds on the floor. "Tell me, Mary, is this what you dreamed of on your wedding day?" I couldn't answer. My eyes were fixed on my father.
Why?
I whispered. "Why did you leave us? Why did you let me believe you were gone?" His face crumpled, guilt written in every line. "Mary, I never wanted to leave you. I was forced to for your safety, for your mother's safety." "Forced?" John croaked from the floor, wincing as blood trickled down his arm. "By who?" Dad's gaze shifted straight to Richard. My heart skipped a beat. Richard smirked, lowering the gun just slightly.
Ah.
Finally, the truth peeks out. "What truth?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "What are you all hiding from me?" My father's hands trembled as he stepped closer, ignoring Richard's weapon. His eyes met mine, full of sorrow. "Mary, the deal Richard holds over your grandfather, it was never about money alone.
It was about me.
About what I knew. I uncovered things, dark things, that Richard had done. Things that could destroy him. But before I could expose him, he threatened you and your mother. I had no choice but to disappear." The floor seemed to vanish beneath me. "So, you've been alive all this time watching us suffer? Watching me suffer?" His eyes filled with tears. "I stayed away because if Richard knew I was alive, he would have hurt you. And I couldn't bear that." My mother collapsed into a chair, shaking her head. "All these years, all those nights I cried, thinking you were gone." Grandpa's cane slipped from his hands, clattering on the floor. He looked broken, smaller than I had ever seen him. But Richard was smiling like a wolf. Touching. Truly touching. "But you've made a mistake, Daniel. Coming back here only seals your fate. You think the sheriff will save you? You think Mary's tears will wash away your weakness?
No.
You're still mine to control. All of you are." The sheriff stepped forward, his hand now on his weapon. "Last warning, Richard. Drop the gun." For the first time, Richard's hand shook. But then he turned the gun, not toward John anymore, not toward my father, but toward me. My blood froze. "Mary," Richard said, his voice calm and terrifying. "If you want this to end, if you want your precious John, your mother, your father, your whole family safe, then you'll come with me.
Right now.
No more arguments. No more tears. You belong to me."
No.
John shouted, struggling to his feet despite the blood. "You won't touch her." My father surged forward, but the sheriff raised a hand to stop him. The room was seconds away from shattering. And then, Richard's finger tightened on the trigger. I screamed. My mother screamed. John lunged toward me. A gunshot rang out. The sound split the air, deafening and final. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my chest, unsure who had been hit. When the smoke cleared, someone was on the floor, blood pooling fast. And it wasn't who I expected. The gunshot echoed through the room like thunder. For a split second, the world seemed to move in slow motion. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it might burst. My ears rang, my chest ached, and my vision blurred. Then I saw it, blood. But it wasn't John's. It wasn't mine either. My grandfather lay on the floor, his cane beside him, his hands clutching his chest as crimson spread across his shirt. "Grandpa!" I screamed, dropping to my knees beside him. My tears fell hot and fast as I pressed my hands to his wound, desperate to stop the bleeding. "Please no.
Stay with me.
Stay with me. The room exploded into chaos. My mother wailed, falling to her knees. John, pale and weak from his own wound, dragged himself toward me. The sheriff rushed forward, his gun aimed steady at Richard. Drop it. Now, the sheriff barked. But Richard didn't move. He looked almost amused, tilting his head as though watching a play unfold. Well, isn't that poetic? He sneered. The old fool who tried to cheat fate, finally paying the price. My father roared in rage and lunged at Richard, tackling him to the ground. The gun clattered across the floor, spinning until it hit the wall. The sheriff dove, scooping it up before Richard could reach it. Daniel, get off him, the sheriff ordered, dragging my father back. Richard struggled beneath his grip, his smile gone, his eyes burning with fury. Meanwhile, I held Grandpa's trembling hand. His eyes fluttered open, his face pale as paper. Mary, he whispered weakly. I never meant for it to go this far. Tears blurred my vision.
Don't talk, Grandpa.
Save your strength. Please. But he shook his head slowly, his breath shallow. No, you need to know. The deal, it wasn't just about you. It was about all of us. I thought I could control him, but Richard, he always had the power. Why, Grandpa? My voice cracked with grief and anger. Why would you do this to me? To us? His lips trembled. Because I was a coward. Because I thought I could buy safety with your future. And now it's too late. My heart shattered. I had trusted him my whole life, believed he was my protector. And here he was, broken and bleeding, admitting that the man who destroyed everything had been given power by his own hands. John reached me, gripping my shoulder despite his pain. His eyes were glassy, but his voice was steady. Mary, don't let him die like this. Don't let him leave without saying what else he knows. I leaned closer to Grandpa, clutching his hand tighter.
Please, Grandpa.
Tell me the truth. All of it. His chest rose and fell unevenly. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Finally, he whispered, Your father, your mother. Richard's secret, it's all connected. Mary, you are the key. And if Richard wins, everything will fall apart. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? What's secret? But his eyes began to close. His hand slipped from mine, growing cold.
No.
Grandpa, stay with me. Stay. Before I could finish, Richard's voice boomed across the room. You'll find out soon enough, Mary. But when you do, you'll wish you hadn't. His face twisted into a dark grin, even as the sheriff pinned him to the floor. And in that moment, I realized the nightmare wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Grandpa's body grew still, his chest no longer rising. My tears fell freely, soaking the front of his shirt as I clutched his lifeless hand. My heart screamed in silence. First my wedding, then John's injury, then my father's sudden return, and now, Grandpa was gone. The man I had trusted all my life, dead before my eyes. But his last words echoed in my mind, haunting me. Your father, your mother. Richard's secret, it's all connected. Mary, you are the key. I lifted my head, my eyes locking on Richard, who was now in handcuffs under the sheriff's control. But even bound, his face wore a twisted smile, like a man who still believed he hadn't lost. You think this ends with me in chains? He hissed.
No, Mary.
You don't know who you are. You don't know the blood that runs through your veins. When you find out, you'll hate them all. My stomach twisted. What are you talking about? Richard's smile widened. Ask your mother. Ask your father. Ask them what really happened the night I forced Daniel to disappear. Ask them why your grandfather was so desperate to keep me silent. I turned to my parents, who were pale and trembling. My father avoided my eyes, while my mother's lips quivered as though holding back a storm of words. Tell me, I demanded, my voice sharp. Tell me the truth. What is he talking about? What did Grandpa mean when he said I was the key? My mother broke first. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, Mary, there's something you were never supposed to know. I felt the world shift beneath me. My knees went weak. What is it? She swallowed hard, her hands shaking as she gripped mine. Richard isn't just some businessman. He's family. My breath caught. What? My father finally raised his eyes, his voice heavy with shame. Mary, Richard is your uncle. My brother. The room spun. My uncle? The man who had tried to destroy me? The man Grandpa had bargained with? The man who wanted to claim me like property? No, I whispered, shaking my head. That can't be true. But Richard laughed, the sound chilling. Oh, it's true. Your grandfather made me an outcast years ago, stripped me of everything. I swore I'd make him pay, and I did through you. His eyes glittered as he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a venomous hiss. You were my revenge, Mary. My way of taking back what was stolen. I stumbled backward, my chest heaving, my heart shattered all over again. My uncle, my own blood, and Grandpa had known. He had chosen to strike a deal instead of protecting me. The sheriff tightened his grip on Richard's arm. That's enough. You'll pay for every crime you've committed. But Richard only smirked. Lock me up if you want.
The truth is out now.
Let's see how Mary lives with it. The sheriff dragged him away, his laughter echoing down the hallway until it faded into silence. I stood frozen, my world collapsing piece by piece. My grandfather was gone. My uncle was a monster. My parents had hidden the truth from me, and my wedding day had turned into a nightmare I could never erase. John pulled me into his arms, weak but determined. Mary, listen to me, he said softly. It doesn't matter who Richard is. You are not him. His blood doesn't define you. What defines you is the love you choose, the life you build. I sobbed into his chest, clinging to him as though he were the only solid thing left in my broken world. And in that moment, I knew the truth. The lesson of my story was this. Sometimes the people we trust most can betray us in the worst ways, but we are not bound to repeat their mistakes. We can choose love, we can choose light, and we can rise above the darkness they leave behind. So yes, Grandpa destroyed my trust forever that day. But in the ashes of that pain, I found my own strength, and that strength carried me forward into a new life. The days after my wedding felt like a blur of shadows and whispers. Instead of a honeymoon, I was trapped in a nightmare of funerals, hospital visits, and unanswered questions. Grandpa's body was laid to rest under the old oak tree he used to sit beneath on warm evenings. I stood at his grave, my hand clutching a single white rose, my heart heavy with anger and grief. I couldn't cry anymore. My tears had dried out. What I felt now was something darker. Betrayal. Grandpa had loved me, I knew that, but he had also used me. He had bargained my life away, and then, when the truth finally came out, he left me with nothing but pain. John stood beside me, still weak from his wound, his hand squeezing mine. Mary, he whispered, I know you're hurting, but you can't let Richard win. Don't let his poison define you. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to lean on him and forget everything. But Richard's words haunted me. You don't know who you are. You'll hate them all. Was there more to the secret? The sheriff visited us 2 days later. His hat in his hands, his face lined with exhaustion, he said, Richard's being held in county jail until trial. But he hesitated. He's been asking for you. My heart skipped. For me? The sheriff nodded. He says he won't talk to anyone else. Claims he's got something to give you. Something your grandfather wanted hidden forever. John tensed. You don't have to go, Mary. He's trying to pull you deeper into his games. But I couldn't ignore it. Not after everything. Not after Grandpa's last words. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Richard's voice echoing in my head. My parents had been silent since the funeral, dodging every question I asked. By dawn, I had made up my mind. I'm going to see him, I told John as the first light crept into the room. He shook his head in protest, but he saw the determination in my eyes. He knew nothing would stop me. When I entered the cold, gray room of the county jail, Richard was already waiting, sitting on the other side of the glass, a phone pressed to his ear. His eyes lit up when he saw me, like a predator spotting prey. "You came," he said, his voice silky through the receiver. "Good girl." I clenched my jaw. "What do you want from me?" He leaned forward, his smile sharp. "I want to tell you the truth your parents won't. The truth your grandfather took to his grave." My pulse quickened. "Then say it." Richard's grin widened. "Mary, your life is built on a lie. The man you call your father isn't really your father." The phone slipped in my hand, and my breath caught in my throat. "What?" I whispered. Richard's eyes glittered with satisfaction. "That's right. And when you find out who your real father is, you'll finally understand why your grandfather feared me, why he gave you to me, and why you were never truly his to protect." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. And just as I opened my mouth to demand more, Richard whispered, "Shall I tell you his name?" For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My fingers tightened around the cold receiver as Richard's words dug into my chest like knives. "My father, not really my father?" I forced my voice to steady, though it trembled with rage.
Say it.
"Say his name." Richard leaned back in his chair, savoring my torment like a cruel magician revealing the final trick. "Your real father is Daniel, the man you thought was just your uncle." My mind spun. The world around me tilted, the walls closing in. "No," I shook my head violently. "That's not true. Daniel is my father's younger brother." "That makes no sense." Richard chuckled, low and mocking. "Oh, it makes perfect sense. Your mother loved him, not your so-called father. She and Daniel, they had an affair. You were the result. But your grandfather, oh, he couldn't allow the shame. He forced Daniel to disappear and your mother to marry his older son instead. He built your life on lies, Mary. Lies to protect the family name." My hand flew to my mouth. No, you're lying." But deep down, something inside me cracked. The stolen glances I had seen between my mother and Daniel long ago. The way Grandpa's eyes hardened whenever Daniel's name was mentioned. The reason Daniel had left town suddenly, without explanation. Richard smirked at my silence.
See?
"You feel it, don't you? You've always known you didn't quite belong. Now you understand why your grandfather feared me. Because I knew the truth. And if I exposed it, his perfect little empire would crumble." Tears blurred my vision. My whole body shook as I whispered, "Why are you telling me this?" Richard leaned closer, his eyes cold and merciless. "Because you need to know who you are before you decide who you'll become. You carry Daniel's blood. And Daniel was weak. He ran.
He hid.
He let your grandfather control him.
But me?
I never bowed. That's why I'll always be stronger than you, Mary. Stronger than them all." I slammed the receiver down, my chest heaving with fury. I couldn't listen anymore. I couldn't stand his voice poisoning me. But his words had already rooted in my heart. I staggered out of the jail, the sunlight blinding, the air heavy and suffocating. John was waiting by the car, his eyes searching my face. "Mary? What did he say?" I couldn't speak. My lips trembled, my throat locked tight. "Mary?" John pressed his hand on my arm. Finally, the truth spilled out like poison. He says, "Daniel is my real father." John froze, his eyes wide with shock. "What?" "I don't know what to believe," I cried, clutching my head. "But it explains so much. Why Grandpa despised Daniel. Why he forced me to marry into power. Why he bargained me away. Everything was about covering their secret." John pulled me close, but I could feel his own confusion, his own fear, pressing between us. That night, I confronted my mother. She sat in the living room, the firelight casting shadows across her face. I stood before her, trembling, my voice breaking. "Is it true? Is Daniel my father?" Her silence was the answer. Her tears confirmed it. I felt my legs give way, and I collapsed to the floor, sobbing. My whole life, every memory, every smile, every belief, was shattered in that moment. My mother knelt beside me, trying to touch my shoulder, but I pulled away. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't anyone tell me? Her voice broke as she whispered, because I wanted to protect you. I thought I was saving you from pain. Protect me? I screamed. You built my whole life on lies. You let me love a man who isn't even my father. My mother sobbed harder, but I turned away. My heart was too raw, too broken to forgive. And in the corner of the room, my father— no, the man I once called father— stood silently, his face pale, his fists clenched. For the first time in my life, I didn't see him as my protector. I saw him as a stranger. And in that silence, I knew my family would never be the same again. But little did I know, the worst was yet to come. Because Richard's revelation was only the beginning. The house that once held laughter now echoed with silence and broken hearts. My mother locked herself in her room after confessing, her sobs muffled behind the door. The man I had called father all my life sat in the kitchen, staring at a glass of whiskey, his eyes hollow, his hands trembling. I hovered in the doorway, unsure if I wanted to scream at him or comfort him. When he finally looked up, his voice was gravelly. Mary, no matter what Richard says, no matter what your mother did, I raised you. I'm your father.
His words should have comforted me, but instead they cut deeper.
But you're not, I said bitterly. You lied to me. All of you lied to me. Do you have any idea what it feels like to wake up one morning and realize your whole life is fake? He flinched like I had slapped him. His jaw tightened, his eyes glistened.
But he didn't argue.
He just lowered his head in shame. That night, I couldn't stay in the house. The walls pressed in like they wanted to suffocate me. I grabbed my coat and ran into the night, the cold air biting at my skin. My feet carried me to the only place I thought I might find answers, the old cabin at the edge of town. It was Daniel's cabin, the man who, according to Richard, was my true father. When I knocked, there was no answer. But the door creaked open, and inside I saw him, older, weary, with tired eyes that had seen too much. He froze when he saw me, the blood draining from his face. Mary, his voice cracked. I didn't think you'd ever come here. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. Richard told me. He said, you're my father. Is it true? Daniel's shoulders slumped, as though a weight too heavy to carry had finally broken him. He sat down heavily, running a trembling hand through his hair. I never wanted you to find out this way. The silence that followed was unbearable. My voice rose, sharp and trembling. So it's true? You're my father? Tears welled in his eyes as he nodded. Yes, Mary. It's true. I loved your mother. We were young, reckless, and your grandfather, he found out. He forced me to leave, forced your mother to marry my brother. He said it was the only way to save the family's name. And his voice broke. I was too much of a coward to fight him. My knees buckled, and I sank into a chair. My whole body shook. You let me grow up thinking another man was my father, I whispered, my voice thick with rage and sorrow. You abandoned me. Daniel's tears spilled freely. I thought I was protecting you, but I was wrong. I failed you, Mary. I failed you as a father. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream until my voice was gone. But seeing him broken before me, I felt something else, a hollow emptiness. Before I could speak again, the sound of footsteps outside snapped my head up. Heavy, deliberate, chilling. Daniel froze, his eyes narrowing. Did you tell anyone you were coming here? I shook my head, fear prickling my skin. The door creaked open. And there, standing in the shadow of the moonlight, was a figure I thought I had left behind in the county jail. Richard. My heart stopped. How are you here? I stammered. Richard stepped inside slowly, his smile sharp and terrifying. Did you really think bars could hold me, Mary? Did you really think you were safe? Daniel lunged forward, his voice trembling with both fear and fury. Get out of here, Richard. But Richard only laughed, his eyes locked on me. I told you, Mary. You can't escape me. You carry my secrets now. and soon you'll carry my curse." And with that, he pulled something shiny from his coat pocket, a knife that glinted under the pale moonlight. The blade gleamed in Richard's hand, catching the moonlight like a predator's eye. My breath caught in my throat. My legs felt frozen, my body refusing to move. Daniel stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. His voice shook, but his words were firm. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." Richard's grin widened, cruel and twisted. Oh, how poetic. The father who abandoned her suddenly wants to play the hero. Where was this bravery 20 years ago? Daniel? Daniel clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "I won't let you hurt her." Richard lunged. The cabin erupted into chaos, grunts, shouts, the crash of furniture toppling. Daniel grabbed Richard's wrist, fighting to keep the knife away, their bodies slamming into the wooden table. The blade came dangerously close to Daniel's throat. I screamed, grabbing the nearest thing I could find, a heavy lantern. With all my strength, I swung it at Richard's back. The lantern shattered, flames licking across the floorboards. Richard roared in fury, spinning toward me. His eyes burned with madness. "You little—" Before he could finish, Daniel tackled him, the knife clattering to the ground. The two men rolled across the floor as fire spread quickly, smoke filling the cabin. "Mary, run!" Daniel shouted, his voice hoarse. But I couldn't move. My feet felt cemented. My heart screamed at me to flee, but my soul screamed louder. "I can't leave him." I grabbed the knife from the floor, my hands trembling, the sharp metal cold against my skin. For the first time, I held the power of life and death. Richard pinned Daniel to the ground, his hands wrapped around his throat. Daniel's face turned red, his eyes bulging. He was seconds from death. "Stop!" I cried, raising the knife. Richard turned his head toward me, his grin returning even as smoke choked the air. "Do it, Mary. Be like me. Be your father's daughter. Prove you have the strength to kill." The fire roared, sparks flying, the heat searing my skin. Daniel's struggles weakened. My hand shook violently. Tears blurred my vision. "I'm not like you," I screamed. And with all my might, I plunged the knife. But not into Richard. Into his arm. He howled in pain, releasing Daniel. Blood splattered across the wooden floor. Daniel coughed violently, gasping for air as he scrambled to his feet. The fire climbed higher, consuming the walls. Smoke burned my lungs. We had seconds left. Daniel grabbed my hand. "We have to go." But Richard, clutching his bleeding arm, staggered to his feet. His eyes glowed with rage and madness. "This isn't over, Mary. I'll never let you go." Daniel dragged me toward the door. The flames licked closer, swallowing the cabin whole. We stumbled out into the night air, coughing and heaving, the blaze lighting up the dark sky behind us. I collapsed on the grass, my body trembling uncontrollably. Daniel dropped beside me, holding my shoulders. "You're safe now. You're safe." But deep in my gut, I knew the truth. Richard wasn't dead. And as long as he lived, I would never truly be safe. The flames of the cabin painted the night sky orange, the crackling fire echoing like the cries of the past finally burning away. I sat on the cold grass, shivering, Daniel's arms around me, while my mind swirled in terror and disbelief. Richard's screams still echoed in my ears. He wasn't dead. He had escaped the flames once already, and in my heart, I knew he would crawl out again. The question wasn't if, it was when. And I was right. From the edge of the trees, a dark figure staggered forward, his arm bleeding heavily, his face blackened with soot, but his grin, the same cruel grin that had haunted me since my wedding day, was still there. "Mary," his voice was a rasp, like death itself speaking. "You can burn the cabin. You can stab me. But you'll never be free of me. I'm inside you. I'm your blood. You are mine." Daniel jumped to his feet, shielding me once again. "Stay back, Richard. You've done enough." But Richard kept coming, step by agonizing step, his madness giving him strength where his body should have failed. His eyes locked on me, and in them I saw not love, not even hate, just obsession. I had two choices: run forever, or end it tonight. I rose to my feet, wiping the tears from my smoke-stained face. My voice trembled, but it carried through the night.
No, Richard.
I am not yours. I was never yours. I am me. And tonight it ends. Daniel looked at me with panic. Mary. But I stepped forward, meeting Richard halfway. His eyes widened, surprised at my defiance. The sirens wailed in the distance, police and fire trucks rushing toward the blaze. We had moments left. Richard lunged at me with his good arm, his fingers like claws. I grabbed the heavy branch from the ground beside me and swung with every ounce of strength left in my body. The crack echoed through the night as the branch struck his head. Richard collapsed to the ground, motionless. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. My breath caught. My body shook so violently I thought I might shatter. Daniel touched my arm gently. Mary, it's over. And this time it was. The police arrived moments later, dragging Richard's limp body away, his eyes barely flickering open as they cuffed him. His final words, whispered through bloodied lips, chilled me even as they carried him off. You can't erase me, Mary. I'll haunt you forever. The fire was extinguished, the night swallowed by silence again. But inside me, a new flame had been lit. A flame of strength. Broken heart, so to everyone watching my story right now, remember this. Trust is fragile. Protect it, value it, and never let anyone twist it into chains around your soul. And above all, don't let the betrayals of others define who you are. Thank you for staying with me through my story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification button for more. And please tell me in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching from? I can't wait to read your answers.